to channel all the energy that I had into something great. And I was able to start Dizzy Inc., a greeting card business, when I was in middle school, and it helped me to bring my passion to wanting to serve people and also make money. And it was a phenomenal.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Shafali Billin, and I work in marketing at Build. Really pleased today to introduce you to a special guest, Edreece Arghandiwal, who is the co-founder and CMO of the Oakland Roots and Sports Club in Oakland. Welcome, Edreece. And with that, I will turn it over to our Regional Executive Director in California, Ryan Oliver. Here you go, Ryan.
Everybody out there in Build World, wonderful to be with you, and just very grateful to have this incredible human being, Edreece, with us today. Every time we chat, I'm inspired and uplifted by what he represents and what he and the rest of the organization, the Roots and Soul, are doing in Oakland, particularly just looking for the talent and the brilliance that is out there in the community and bringing it into this big stage that they have, this incredible opportunity to highlight the sport, but also highlight the fundamental brilliance that is Oakland and Oaktown. So Edreece, thanks so much for coming out today to talk entrepreneurship and life and the work you're doing.
Thanks, Ryan, and thank you, Shafali. Pleasure to be here. You all are such a joy to communicate with and collaborate with, and I thank you for the work that you do for the youth in our communities across the nation. And a lot of what we try to do at the club has a similar ethos and through line. So I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's jump in. I know you are a busy man, both at work and at home. You got a lot going on. Got a 6-month-old. Happy birthday to her today.
Yeah.
And 6 months is a big milestone. So let's sort of just start it off with what inspired you to make this leap from sport. You know, I know you were an aspiring athlete. You know, we're out doing the hard work of perfecting your craft, and then made this pivot into entrepreneurship and opening opportunities for others. Just tell us a little bit about that journey and how you think about entrepreneurship in that context.
Yeah, and Brian, the stories are always different for everyone. You know, input equals output, and the output for everyone is different. For me, the journey actually started back when I was at UC Davis, getting my degrees in biological sciences and economics. I was pre-med. I'm going into Davis, you know, as a son of immigrants and refugees born in Oakland, California, to Afghans who fled Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion. You know, safety and security for refugee parents looks like stability, and their children being a part of career pathways that present the exact circumstance that's in their mind, which is salary, good salary, safety, and ability to grow. And, you know, almost every immigrant or refugee family can talk about this or talk to it. Oftentimes that pathway looks like a doctor, an engineer, and so on and so forth. But deep in my heart, I was always very inspired by the notion that you can create joy for someone in their life without them being in a difficult circumstance. And I'll speak to this exactly. I was in a few clinical settings during my collegiate days, working in the hospital settings in the ER and so on. And I had a little bit of a breakthrough. And the breakthrough is that, you know, people, doctors and so on, are dealing with people that are going through difficulty and or present themselves with an illness that unfortunately, like, folks come back to the hospital with.
Mm.
And it made me feel like I didn't want to deal with circumstances at the tail end of a trajectory of someone's life. I wanted to actually try to create things that impacted people while they were living and while they have the opportunity to correct the course in their own life. All of that to say, like, I just didn't have the guts to become a doctor. Doctors and nurses are like on another level of guts, and the setting for me was just not entirely perfect.
Mm.
The first taste of entrepreneurship for me was when I threw a concert at UC Davis that brought together 6,000 people to the concert. I had Mr. Fab and the Pack and a whole bunch of artists perform. And it was the first time where I was like, this is a drastically different vibe than my clinical experiences or going to the ER and helping. Like, I brought together 6,000 people to enjoy this musical experience, and I was able to facilitate joy in their lives, despite maybe their financial background, race, gender, sex, all of that. This was a agnostic place where anyone can come together and enjoy. And that feeling of creating joy for people is really like the premise for why I got the entrepreneurial bug. And that medical shift, the shift from becoming a doctor to becoming an entrepreneur, really was that realization. And again, I'm all kudos and credit to doctors, because it takes a certain type of human to do that, and that is incredible and commendable. But for me, entrepreneurship was what made me happy and what made me tick. And the journey really unravels from there, man. I've had entrepreneurial experiences since the college days. I did a few brand and marketing stints in New York City where I helped bring some major brands to America. I helped facilitate storytelling in a way that connected with people in a meaningful way. And that whole branding exercise, Ryan, gave me the knowledge that storytelling and brand and marketing is the way to get to people. Like, creating a product and a service in a silo, in a vacuum, is one thing, but expressing the value of that thing to people and creating utility for people is a whole nother skill set. And brand and marketing really gave me that perspective. And that's when my love for entrepreneurship, brand and marketing kind of came together. A stint at Apple where I was able to co-manage a few retail locations in the East Bay area. I did set design for certain global artists, graphic design work for musicians. I was doing a bunch of different things in the brand domain, and came back to Oakland, California, where I was born. And I had the question of, why not create a aesthetically driven pro soccer team, but do it differently. And this is kind of what the medical background gave me. It was like this purpose-oriented, human-centric lens that only an ER experience will give you. Seeing what I've seen in the ER helped me create a level of empathy for humans that I probably wouldn't have gained anywhere else. And that led to the question around creating one of the first purpose-driven professional teams in America. And that sole question of, like, why not in Oakland, California, led to the eventual creation in 2019. So a lot to unpack there, but that's kind of my entrepreneurial journey. And in between, I knew that, I'm a brown kid. I'm relatively young. I was young back in this time period, 36 now. But I knew that in order to navigate the rooms that I needed to be in, I needed to have the accolades on paper, because that's the way to play the game, you know? So I went and got my MBA from Babson, which was ranked #1 in entrepreneurship. And I had check marked that box to make sure that that wasn't something that someone held on top of me or held against me. So much of the entrepreneurial game is playing the game and not falling victim to it, and reading a room and understanding the circumstances to put yourself in a position to succeed, very much like sports. So, yeah, lots to unpack there, but I hope that gives you a little bit of insight.
Yeah, that's part of the story I didn't know. I appreciate that. And I, so I'm hearing this connection. I was going to ask you about like why purpose driven, like why aren't you out, selling Coca-Cola, why aren't you, marketing the next iPhone,
Yeah.
and it sounds like that experience, these seemingly dead ends, right? Where you're like, oh, I don't want to be a doctor, but yet that experience opened you up to some human connection. It sounds like that has stayed with you, even though you're not fixing bones. Uh, you're still holding that. Is that accurate? That's where you track that?
Yeah, and I think it's also like how I was raised. I had incredible parents that led with tremendous just care and attention to the things that made us happy. And I also think that people often experience struggle and then use struggle as a way to create a crux for themselves. When in reality, it's actually the biggest flex, to have that in your bag. Difficulty and struggle breeds a new layer of understanding. When my grandma passed away, and I never met my grandpas. I only knew my grandmas my whole life. My grandpas passed with illnesses before I was born. And so my entire life was like all I knew was my grandmas and motherly figures. And when I asked my grandma when she passed, like, what makes you so strong? Like, how did you get through the things you got through? And her response was, we're like rocks. We're just like layers and layers on top of one another over time. And that really gave me a profound perspective into the reality of life, which is like we all have these things that combine themselves to make our identity, and struggle can make you tremendously stronger. And for me, it bred this sense of like empathy and understanding of human behavior. I feel like I could walk into a room and gauge someone's energy really well, just because of my understanding of the human struggle. And it actually means that I don't have to go through certain difficulty or failures, because I can look at what someone has done prior and know exactly what to do based off of that, right? A lot of people have to go through the experience to fix the circumstance. I can actually see it and know that I don't have to navigate that. So that's empathy, in my opinion, is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Emotional intelligence is very key. And being an entrepreneur, building businesses, I have rarely seen, it's very rare, someone that does not have emotional intelligence become hyper successful. Like, you will find corner cases where ruthlessness gets a person to where they have to go. But in so much of regular life, being a good human being and being empathetic leads to far more success. You don't, and by the way, being a billionaire and a trillionaire and all that, like, that is not the definition of success. You don't need that much money to be extremely happy and to make an impact. And so when you remove those outliers, because when you get to the billionaire status, it carries a bit of nuance, and you have to be a certain type of person to be up there. But to be successful and live a good life and be wealthy and have a family that is fed and family that can go to college, like, emotional intelligence is key to get to that level of success. And that's what I was able to gain early, and was able to apply to my early days at Oakland Roots in 2019. And now in 2026, with a staff that's 30, 40x where we started. It's amazing to see.
So let me dig into that for a minute, because I think this is highly relevant to the students that are part of Build, and something that I think quite a lot about is how does one, because it does appear that there are two paths you can take in the face of suffering, right? And that's very simplistic. There's a much more diverse outcome, but I do think in some cases in the face of suffering, we can get harder and more less understanding of others, and say, well, hey, I survived it. I had to tough it out. I had to go through it. They just got to do it on their own.
Yeah.
Like let them do what they got to do, or more empathetic and saying, okay, wow, I understand what that feels like. Let me try to relate, connect. I may not be able to, save somebody else, but I can take action to ease the way for others,
Yeah.
right? To connect in that suffering rather than retreat.
Yep.
How does that happen? What's your experience about where that goes down?
I think it's easy. It's just very easy, Ryan, to result to anger and fear. Like it's a very hard to choose a path um that is of joy and happiness, because anger fuels anger, passive aggressiveness fuels passive aggressiveness, and to combat a negative emotion with a positive one is always very difficult to do. And human beings just tend to take the easier route, which is let me be angry, let me be frustrated, let me allow for anxiety to take over. And I think that difficulty, in a lot of ways, we need to celebrate it and bring a new light to it. Um, you can allow it to eat your life up. You can victimize yourself and blame your circumstance, or you can use it as fuel in a way that then opens the door for others. One of my mentors gave me the biggest piece of knowledge ever. She said that, when you open a door, you got to hold it open. And I never understood that until most recently, when some of the things that I'm doing are creating newer pathways, not only for people that may be brown or black or, relate to me, but people that are trying to build models like the businesses that we're creating, right?
Yeah.
We, as an example, are one of the most successful teams in raising investment from our community. We are community owned. In most cases, like the Green Bay Packers, you're essentially donating money in return for a perk. When you're investing in Oakland Roots, you're participating in the value upside and the value creation of the club. And in 2023-24, we raised 3.6 million from 6,000 plus investors locally and globally, making it one of the most successful community raises in American sports history. And that doesn't happen on accident. That doesn't happen by just thin air. It happens by really diligent work in your community and, creating pathways for people to participate in a way that doesn't. And like that campaign alone opened the realm of reality for many other sports teams and many other local businesses. So others started to think about, well, oh wow, it could be a small pub in Oakland, as an example. I got reached out by a few venues saying, hey, how did you guys do this? We would love to replicate this model and bring people into our investment structure and invite the community in to participate so that they have skin in the game. It was all of that like opened the door, and then leaving it open means you're helping these people as well to create new realities. So yeah, and joy is just a more fulfilling thing in life, man. Like leading with empathy and joy is harder, but longer term, when it's all said and done, you can look back on this thing called life, and you didn't shortcut it in a way that shortcut other people. And I think that's key in entrepreneurship. Like no one created a perfect formula for success in entrepreneurship. If that was the case, you can go to Barnes and Noble and buy the self-help book and everyone would be successful. There is no path to success that is guaranteed outside of the one that you foresee for yourself. And it really just takes rigorous work and a little bit of like, radical optimism to get to where you're going. And so that's helped me, man. I mean, creating a protein out of thin air with no funding. Most billionaires buy sports teams or do sports at the tail end of their career. I started it living out of a car, bunking from my cousin's house, so anything is possible if you really, really, really want it. And you put the intention out there. So
it sounds like some mentorship and some folks along the way, to some family and some others that that helped guide. Just
Certainly.
wanted to open up the conversation about like how we connected, and shout out to Ayana Moody, Build alum and board member, and another phenomenal human for introducing us. And what, as we started talking, like what inspired you ultimately to get connected with Build, that kind of got us to this point?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at Oakland Roots and Soul Sports Club, we're a club, but we're also a living example of entrepreneurship in motion. When we started this thing, it was truly just an idea, a community, a belief that sport can be used for something much larger than the game itself. And I think this is why Build's mission feels so aligned. Uh, you guys are teaching young people that you can be the CEOs of their own lives. And you're trying to show people in Oakland and all over that they can build brands, they can build movements and businesses and teams and create features that make their own circumstances better and better in the places they came from. And yeah, I mean, and I think so much of our responsibility as a club was to look at our local environment and ask the question, how is this club acting as a resource for a reality change in our community? And I mean, so much of that aligns with a lot of what you all do. And it's always been my dream to work in these domains, whether it's marketing, ticketing, design, data, merchandising, sponsorships, so on, to create new creative revenue streams that help our business succeed. And what I learned is that so much of the world's future ideas comes from the youth. And I'll give you an example of a real world business case. When we first started the club, I was under resourced, and I called the USF sports management program because they had students going through this process of becoming business leaders in sports. And I worked with the partnerships class to develop a curriculum that asked students to come up with presentations on potential partnerships for the club. I remember getting pitched these ideas of sponsorship ideas and partnership ideas and thinking, I didn't even think about this before. Like, I didn't think that this company would overlap and align with our values in such ways. And I'm proud to say that like 70 to 80% of those ideas that these kids brought up in those early days, young adults brought up in these early days, turned into real partnerships. And so when you're building something, your ear to the streets are sometimes disconnected, but the streets is where time doesn't lie. And I think that's what intrigued me to connect with y'all and one, create pathways to make the circumstances for our youth better, but also to get a sense of what the youth wants for the future and help funnel that vision into the club in a way that makes them lifelong ambassadors. So
Very cool. Well, let's vision a little bit. We ideated all kinds of possibilities and things, but what do you see as sort of an ideal state in terms of partnerships like this with Build and other organizations, like especially entrepreneurial organizations that are supporting youth? Like, what is an ideal scenario for you in terms of the reciprocal benefit and the ability to bring innovation from youth into the work that you're doing?
yeah, I mean, I think a great example was the one I just talked about, like bringing in students and youth to help participate in working and navigating real club challenges. Um, how do we bring more youth to the games and design ticket offers that allow for equitable access so that these kids are getting inspired? Just last week, we co-hosted one of OUSD's biggest STEM fairs ever at the Oakland Coliseum. So yet another example of hundreds of youth and families coming together in a way they have never before because the club existed. And what happens is it's so hard in a business world to prove that value, the value of such a thing. but that's why we're so different. We know that when we invite hundreds of families into this iconic STEM fair, what happens is they become lifelong ambassadors. Their families become ambassadors of the club, and it's generational at that point, right? We've had students design and upcycle garments with old jerseys and gear from our lifestyle collections and display them for the first time in a fashion show at the Oakland Coliseum, right? So now you're tapping into fashion and design in a way where students can display their artwork in the stadium in a way that has never done before. We've created mentorship pathways with our athletes and our front office. And the pipeline of internships at this club is out of this world. I mean, we are always looking for, youth to come help us either at the merch booth for sales or community events. An amazing storyline here is, both our director of operations and our head of merchandising were two interns that were working the merch booth. Two entrepreneurial, hospitality driven individuals work in the merch booth. And then years later, they're now, creating multi-million-dollar pipelines for the club. They're putting on operations the size of a Coliseum. But it's just an example of like what the end to end could look like for these types of partnerships. So
that's great. That's great. Just quick question, like segueing into that, just thinking about some of the skills that Build students learn on the path to becoming CEOs of their own lives. Strong emphasis on human-centered design. I think what you talk about in terms of empathy, really leaning into that. How do we teach that at scale, right? Rather than leave it to the randomness of people having experiences or not that might connect empathy to success, right? And understanding, empathy is not about charity and being nice. It's about really understanding people so that you can build stronger connections, be more fulfilled, but also build better businesses, right? And build better organizations that actually meet the needs and use resources well. And you spoke a lot about that. We also focus with our Spark skills around collaboration, communication, innovation, self-management, grit, problem solving. Of those, think about problem solving, innovation, collaboration. Is there one that has been most important to you in your success?
Oh man, this is a good question. I think I've always viewed it as a pie, and each of these things play a significant role. Being an entrepreneurial is not one dimensional. I do think that your style can be collaborative, your style can have a facet of what you're describing, right? But at the end of the day, there's going to be moments where cross-pollination is needed more than not. There's going to be a moment where you're pushing on one lever and not another. The best way I can explain it is that it's a fluid, adaptable environment. And the only way to succeed truly is to be like water and just flow to where the things flow, and to never have an ego about where the market is going, right? In 2019, when we started the club, first game ever, we had 6,000 people show up at Laney College. It gave me a sense of pride and motivation and success. And I got a little swagger in my step. And then like 3 more games at Laney College, we killed it, sold out. And then I went into 2020 thinking, wow, we got the funding now to build this thing as a professional club. We're ready to go. First game of the season, second game of the season, we got notification that the first case of COVID was coming by way of a cruise ship. And the next literal Monday was like Saturday game day, Monday, we canceled the season. And I remember thinking like, wow, like 4 years of hard work, blood, sweat, tears, diligence, all just like taken away like that, I couldn't have controlled the circumstance. I couldn't have predicted the future, but the season collapsed. I had to have a hard discussion with staff around, what do we do now? Like, how do we generate revenue? Where do we go? Um, and I had this gut feeling that we either adapt now or we die. It was that simple. Adapt or die. And we adapted in a way that was significantly meaningful in a time where sports teams were just laying off everyone and they were going dormant. We kept everyone on staff. We pivoted our purpose from playing soccer and so on to being completely present for our community and finding ways to generate visibility and storytelling tools to our partners that gave them the same level of visibility as a soccer game. But instead, we told black and brown stories in our community. We provided a resource to organizations that needed it and weaved in our partnerships and sponsorships in a way that led to success and visibility. So it was tremendous to see that in real life. Like pivoting kept our season ticket base along because they appreciated what we were trying to do in that moment. And it also cemented us in a way that differentiated us, right? And that's key. It's like constant differentiation, constant adaptability. You have to be a Swiss Army knife. You know that quote, a jack of all trades is a master of none?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what most people don't realize is that there's another part to the quote, and we often leave it out. And the quote goes, there's a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And we never finish that part. We are excited and fixated on mastering a single thing. And I have a personal philosophy of getting to 80% proficiency and then moving to the next thing. Like there is no reason to get to 100%. Most people will never experience the gap of 80 to 100% of that thing. So get to 80% proficiency and then move to the next thing. And everyone I hire at the club, I have two criteria. One, do I see myself working for them? And two, are they a Swiss Army knife? Are they going to be locked into, hey, my role is XYZ and I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to pick up the trash? No, like a holistic human and a holistic, empathetic person will see a piece of trash in the stadium and pick it up, despite it being their job. It's a part of who they are. It's a part of the ethos, and they're able to adapt to the circumstance. So,
Love it. Love it. Cool. Well, I want to pause for a minute, segue to little sequence I like to call the FanBiz Challenge. So FanBiz quiz. I'm gonna put your skills to the test here. This is an experience that our Build students do to give them an experience of entrepreneurship before they launch their own business. And it's actually open for youth all over the country. And we've even started to incorporate some AI. So with Adobe, we're doing some Adobe Express where students do a branding marketing challenge. That's the one I should have brought for you, and I'm gonna bring that next time. But here it is. We're going for the classic here, classic FanBiz. So here's how it goes. And FanBiz, just for context, was actually inspired by a real life build team. So Cookie Boss, Boston, circa 2011. They grossed like $40,000 over a few years. And they created this business that was all about, originally it was a young man that wanted to create a cookie, right? Like he just loved baking and he wanted to make a cookie company. But then they found this business stream where it was cookie marketing, right? So they're putting logos on a cookie and selling it to companies for different events. Like a game, right? You can imagine a Roots logo on a cookie, right? And so this experience led to what is now Build's FanBiz, where students become the CEO, right? It's like one of the first things they do is that Okay, you're thrown into it. You're 14. So what? Now the CEO of this family business. And so they have some mentorship. So Mo the custodian, shout out to Mo the builder, one of the co-designers of this experience. But they have to answer questions like this. So Edreece, I'm gonna put you on the spot. We're gonna do a couple here. Start off with the original as somebody who's deeply empathetic, believes in community. Here's your dilemma. Your best friend says, remember what I told you last week? Got worse. I need somebody to come help me right now. So you're thinking, oh no, I have a huge client order. You got to get a bunch of cookies made. And it's going to cost you a lot if you don't deliver. You can't be in two places at once. That's your dilemma.
Yep.
What do you choose? Option one. Friends are important, but you're the leader of your business. Your customers are counting on you to deliver, finish the order, and hope your friend understands. Or option two, friends come first, let your customer know there'll be a delay, head to your friend's house right away. Hopefully your team will understand. You can put this in your own world, your own context. You got to delay, you got a deadline, and somebody, from your personal world needs your support. What are you going to do?
Man, this is incredible. I'm a option two guy.
Okay.
And I'll explain to you why I think.
What's your rationale? That's the most important thing, right? There's no right answers.
There's no right answer here. I think my rationale is that as a leader, if the people around me get a sense that I am a person that does not prioritize people first and family first, it is hard for them to build trust with me and to support me in the long term. And irrespective of the perception of my choice, your personal values and your belief in life have a resounding impact on the decisions you make. Karma's real. And I think there's a world here where, you can actually have a very thorough discussion with the customer on why they cannot come first right now. Right. And in most cases, if you have a good relationship with the customer and a good connection with the brand partner or whoever it is on the other side, and you explain to them why you cannot fulfill their order in this moment, and you describe that circumstance, I think in most cases, people will be understanding and appreciate the honesty and transparency. So I'd opt to option two than to lose a good friend.
Right. All right. Let's see. Let's check it out. Thank you so much. I knew I could count on you, right? So your friend is obviously happy for sure. Now, question is, what's the consequence? What is it? Choosing between your friends and your work isn't easy. This is Mo's wisdom, the mentorship piece. You're an entrepreneur. You have flexibility. You can make your own schedule. You're not going to fire yourself. Community and personal health go up. That's the upside. Right? And that's the whole essence of Build's Fan Biz and really Build's ethos about entrepreneurship, is that entrepreneurship isn't just your bank account. Like you said, right? You could be a billionaire. What are the costs?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
What's the harm that's being done to the community? What's the harm that might be done to your family or to that larger context, to the team, right? How are you driving your team to outcomes that are not just about the profit, but are also about the community, the culture, the larger good. So, these are the things that we're asking our students to balance.
Fantastic.
There is a downside here. You might lose that customer and your team health in this case, again, within the context of Build's Fan Biz, your team health suffers in the sense that, hey, your team was counting on you and they understand, but they also maybe missed your leadership in this moment. So, but again, as you said, right, there's always these competing goods, right? There's no moral dilemma that's between right and wrong. That's not a moral dilemma, right? It's clear. It's what are we trading off? And again, this is just kind of a fun gamified way to try to help our students face these like a leader. We'll do this last one, and then we'll pivot to a couple just closing questions. So I'm going to put this in a context of of the game, right? No disrespect, but oh man, that game was boring. I don't know. I may have to look into another sports team. I may have to, drive down to a 49ers game. I'm not feeling the vibe at the Roots this weekend. It's a surprise. You haven't had that many complaints. Everybody loves the Roots. What do you mean? We had, E40, we had what are you talking about? We had Eazy-E, we had the whole show, we had fireworks, so you have two options. One, listen to customer feedback, listen to the fans, reach out to some others, try to see how they feel, consider improving the product, or ignore the feedback, keep focused on making your games, in this case, the cookies, but for you, put on the experience that you think is tried and true. There's always going to be haters. Somebody's always going to complain. You can't please all the people. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So I think that option one could lead to option two. And I would lean option one first. And I would do the right thing, which is listen to the customer. And Ryan, at Oakland Roots, we are obsessed with something called the Net Promoter Score. It's a measure of whether or not someone is going to experience your thing and then turn into an ambassador and tell other people about it. Up until last year, we had not spent a single dollar on paid advertisement because our entire marketing engine was based on word of mouth. How likely are you to recommend this to someone? You're either going to fall into a category of promoter, neutral, or detractor. A neutral person isn't going to say anything about it. They just kind of went through it and thought it was cool. They'll probably return to another game. Promoter actively is out there promoting your thing, and a detractor will speak negative on your experience. And so I would work really hard to understand where this person lies. Are they a promoter that just had one bad experience and maybe there's business in the future with this person and there's a circumstance that I don't quite understand? Are they neutral and they just haven't felt good enough to become a promoter? Or are they a detractor and they really have had a poor experience that I need to correct course with? I'll use an example. At our recent Soul game, a lyric to a song led to a fan saying, hey, it had some derogatory tones, and I don't think I feel good about coming back because of that. And so I had to look at that as a detractor and say, this person will actively speak negative about the brand and what we're doing in the community if we do not fix it. So we need to address it. And if one person experienced something negative, it means that there's probably a market of other people that are experiencing that thing too. So after I do a lot of this research, I would land on, is the feedback something that we can control or not? If it is something we can control, we should fix it. If it is not something we can control, then you start to lead to option two. So if there's only one person in 7,000 capacity venue that complains about the music, and you learn that they're probably from, I don't know, Marin, it might be the case that they probably culturally don't understand the product we're trying to put out, and they're not our customer. So it's important to, at some point in the journey, know your customer as well, because you're not going to appeal to everyone, right? Your product is meant for a certain demographic. And it's one of my earliest entrepreneurial lessons that I had, Ryan, is I tried to cast a very wide net to try to get everyone to like the things that I was doing. And then I realized very quickly that, and this is why Oakland Roots tagline is Oakland first always. Like, you either get it and you appreciate what we're doing, or you don't. And once we learn about who loves us, we go and find more of those people. There's 7 billion people in this world. So you don't have to appeal to everyone. But I don't think you can go to 100 in the first step. You have to go through the motions of understanding where your customers' concerns are, understand whether it's controllable or not, and then make a decision on whether or not they are your demographic or not, and make a decision pretty decisively.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I want to come back to that, but let's see what the survey says here. All right, boom. You're on Cookie, who's the person who's passed on this business. This is family business. That's part of Build's family business, right? She'd be very proud of how you're handling things, Edreece. So your grandmother would be very proud of you in this case, right?
Amazing.
Customers' feedback is important at all stages of business. I'll remain a customer, see how you continue to make this place better. So this sounds like a win to lean into that. So, and this is a lot of, I would say one of the hardest things as a former high school teacher and having worked with a lot of Build students, just that humility to take the note, right? As I used to say when I was acting and doing theater and stuff, like just take the note, the note. You can decide what to do with it, but just receiving that feedback in a humble way, is so hard, because it can feel, especially for something that you put your heart and soul into, right?
Indeed.
To have somebody criticize it and be like, oh, it's not that good, or oh, I didn't like what you did here. It can feel like especially for our young people who are not used to that kind of,
build the thick skin quick, because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It is not. If you have a soft stomach, I'd recommend building the layer of resilience right now before it's too late, because you're constantly getting feedback from your customers, your employees, your investors. And I'd recommend reading the book Leaders Eat Last, and also a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, to learn that it takes radical humility and radical candor to be successful. At Apple, at retail, we had a policy where everyone had to be super transparent with one another. If a person was chewing gum on the sales floor, we would pull them aside and say, hey, don't think you should be chewing gum on the floor because it leads to XYZ perception. And you're direct, you're clear, and you're not personal about the feedback. It's about growth. I think when there's no haters and when there's no negativity, that's when I get scared, because people don't care enough to want to ridicule it. And when you're building something healthy, it always has a relationship between promoters and detractors. That's how you know you're growing, so.
Beautiful. All right. Well, the alternative, is not hearing the feedback is a great way to, show people, as you said, you're not there, whether you respond or not, right? Whether you change things up, that act of listening, it sounds like, is really important in your world. Just to know that people have been heard, right? Even if the answer is, look, that's actually a core part of who we are. This is what we're building. Sorry, I'm sorry it didn't work for you. Please come back, or maybe it's not for you. That might be an answer too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to wrap up with just a couple things. Thank you for playing.
Of course, these are amazing games. I almost feel like I should present these as slides to our staff and have them be challenged a little bit. I wonder if you all are open to doing this a session with our staff. Honestly, would be a fun one.
100%. And what I'm excited about with that is, if you're willing, capturing some of their responses, and then having that as a bank for our students, right? When our students are like struggling with these things, and dreamed of having, adult professionals and folks, just be able to demonstrate for students. These are real difficult questions that they're facing at an early age. So 100%, sign me up. Let's go.
Yeah. And Ryan, one last thing I wanted to mention on this, though.
Yeah.
You know, if there was a way to broadcast a message to the world in a way that like is one thing that I would recommend during entrepreneurship in this
Yeah,
journey,
let's hear it.
it's to just do the right thing. Like in all of these scenarios, right? No matter how difficult they are, no matter how difficult, if you just ask yourself, what is the right thing to do? You're always going to choose the right answer. And the problem is that the right thing is always skewed by the wrong thing, which
Mhm.
is how do you extract? How do you squeeze? How do you manipulate? How do you become ruthless? These are all the principles that media and social media have taught us as our ways to success. But let me ask you something. Who are the most profound people you remember, we all remember in history, right? If you look at the history books, it's the MLKs, it's the Malcolm X, it's the
Mandela.
the Gandhis, it's the people that really move the needle for humanity that we remember the most. And
Mhm.
when we're building businesses, we have the ability to do that. The business itself can move a needle for humanity. Um, I actually would advise youth to go to Disneyland next time you go to Disneyland, and don't go there for the fun of it, but go there to experience the business of it
Mm.
and observe how the experience makes you feel like magic.
Mm.
Security hides away. Partnered kiosks are branded simply. Colors are uniform. The customer experience is positive and tight. I mean, there's a business lesson in literally every facet of that place.
Mm.
And it is, quite frankly, one of the more um, culturally relevant institutions of our time, and would highly recommend as entrepreneurs to look at the human experience holistically. I'll give you
Awesome.
one last thing because we might be over the time here, but like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I got one more question for you if you got
at,
time for it.
perfect. And at Apple, we used to pump cents in vents so that when people open their product for the first time, they would have a sensory experience tied to that memory.
Mm.
At Disney, when you're walking down the main street, they pump scents out of the stores into the streets so that you can smell the food and the stores and so on to draw you in. Life is sensory, and entrepreneurship is empathy and understanding the senses. And so we're getting a little bit philosophical here, but I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We need a whole, second round. May have to call you back for a follow up to dig into that, because I think this idea that, always do the right thing, when facing a dilemma, knowing the right thing, which I hear you, that sense in your gut. I do think we often know, and sometimes we talk ourselves out of it because it's like, well, is that the strategic thing, and am I going to get played, and is somebody going to get over on me, or am I going to survive? Like,
Yeah.
the survival instinct sometimes can dissuade us from maybe going in that direction, as well as the fear that others might be not doing the right thing, and am I going to get, you know somebody else going to get over on me? And there's a lot, especially thinking about the teenage mind, and just that constant worry that they might fall behind, or that they might not be liked, or that they might they might lose out on something, or something might be unfair, or somebody else isn't going to play fair, and why should
Yeah.
I? And I mean, this is a whole dialogue we need to be having with our young people.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And there's no right answers. And when I got my MBA from Babson, uh, all we did was read business case studies. And all we did was learn from individual choices and decisions. And it wasn't about here's the right answer. It was actually about who are you and how do you use all of this information to make the decision that's right for you. And that's the most important thing about entrepreneurship, I think.
I want to close this out by just coming full circle and asking you, Edreece,
Yeah.
who are you as a father? Right? You're a new father, newish father, 6 months in.
Yeah.
How has that affected who you are as a man and also who you are as a leader and an entrepreneur, if at all?
I mean, this is multifaceted, multi-layered. You know, building this business is not easy at all. It is being in sports, you know, the ups and downs of winning and losing, the difficulty of dealing with pandemics and cultural phenomena, local politics, you know, all while still trying to create a sustainable model is it takes tremendous guts and tremendous difficulty. And and then layer that with the introduction of a newborn, you know, and I thought in a way I was not going to be able to handle it. Um, but it shifted my perspective and meaning, right? Like much of my life, I lived like egocentric, right? I used my own emotions and my own beliefs and passions to fuel my outcome. But having Amaya and having Michelle, my wife, along my side is it's deeply humbling, man, and it has brought new meaning in a way where many of the decisions now are done with the lens uh, where she's watching. And I think as a leader, um, how I treat people is how I want her to see me. And I don't want her to see someone that is stressed and leads with frustration and anger and a lack of patience, right? Um, I want her to aspire and want to be the type of leader that I am. And so it's brought new meaning and I'm adapting, you know, I'm adapting and learning as I go. But I could have been more rigid, you know, I could have been more rigid and I could have been fine with my ways and I could have kept going down that path. But I think back to my earlier point about adaptability and fluidity, super, super important to be open and accepting of this thing called life. We're just flowing through it, and sometimes you can't force it, and that's the feeling I have.
That's deep. That's deep. Thank you, and a plug for all those leaders out there that are looking to raise their game and challenge themselves. Come and coach a Build student team and experience parenting in a less intense way. You get to parent some young people and then go home. so be that extended family for a Build student team and come out and volunteer and yeah, I agree that, you know, being around young people and especially raising a young child, it's the greatest teaching I've ever had. So
yeah.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edreece.
I hope it was insightful, and you know, I'm happy to speak to the youth whenever you all need. As an example, one thing I've been, I think I mentioned this to you, Ryan, but we should try to get the youth to come out here as well to the training facility. It's pretty amazing out here, and I'm happy to speak to them. I'm happy to actually get some of our leadership to speak to them. So we could do a little mini panel where they can ask some hard questions and, you know, where we can respond in a way that's authentic and real. So let me know and we can arrange for that. It's a busy time. Australia will be calling the training grounds home for the World Cup. So this whole place is going to be bustling and hustling. But I think July-ish, August, after the World Cup will be fun.
Let's talk September.
Yeah, let's do it.
And last plug, what should we be looking out for as fans for the Roots for this summer? You're hosting the Australian team.
Yeah.
What else is happening at the Roots that we should be looking to in terms of games coming up or other things?
Yeah,
I'll just say the roots and the soul,
the roots
Edreece.
and the soul.
Roots
Yeah,
and soul.
exactly. I was just about to. You stole the thunder there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, this is
Good luck,
perfect.
Shafali. Good luck.
Soul season just started this past weekend, and we got 4 more at home through the month of June, some in July. Australia being here is a huge deal for the East Bay economy, as it's
Yeah.
going to attract a lot of Australian fans to the Bay Area. And we're active, man. We're going to be super present during the World Cup. We got a lot going on, and the team's playing really well. We're sitting in second place right now. You know, if we
Congrats, that's awesome.
continue, we'll be able to host a playoff game for the first time in Oakland's history. A soccer playoff match at the Coliseum would be a fun, yet another historic thing added to the list. Would be amazing to see. So, yeah, and tap in on the website, oaklandrootssc.com. Much of everything is over there. And we got to do a build night at a game. That would be
Let's do
fun.
it. I think it's coming up. I think
coming.
it's coming up.
Yeah, oh, we're doing it.
Shafali's got it. Yeah, let's
Amazing.
go, Shafali.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you on the 16th. Thank you for that.
Yes,
and for
let's
the
go.
partnership, Edreece. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you. All right.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.